Hey, I'm Scott Simpson, and you're listening to the Head Smack podcast.
You are listening to conversations with misfits, mavericks, and trailblazers.
Hey, welcome to the Head Smack podcast. My name is Paul Pavolny, and I'm excited to have another misfit with me. I have Scott Simpson, and he is a leading YouTube strategist and founder of Graffiti Media, a done-for-you YouTube agency. He helps businesses scale revenue and brand recognition with organic content. Scott, how you doing, man?
I'm excellent. Thank you for having me on your show, Paul. This is awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the conversation. Had a few technical difficulties coming into this. Hopefully, I will get it resolved when I get to working on this. But for now, it's sounding good, and I'm excited to talk to you, especially around YouTube strategy. We know we're in a very visual time of culture and content consumption, and so I'm looking forward to this conversation. So, what I usually like to start with is a little bit about your origin story. Tell me about Scott Simpson. You can go as far back as you want to go.
Yeah, so I've always been an entrepreneur, and even from a very young age, I was selling things, baseball cards, and I would hand carve things out of wood, and I would sell things with wood when I was a kid, sell candy and soda at school. And so naturally, when I became an adult, that just was the path that I went down. I got married young. Married my wife when I was 20 years old, and almost immediately we fell into entrepreneurship. We started 7 businesses over the first 7 years of our marriage, and
Oh,
every
wow.
single one of those businesses failed. And I look back now and I'm like, okay, they weren't failures because I learned something from every single one of those difficult times. But in 2010, my wife and I were completely broke. No, it was 2009. My wife and I were completely broke, and we're like, let's write a book about success. And I'm like, how do you write a book about success when you're in the middle of just extreme poverty and hardship? And we knew all the principles of success, and so we wrote this book. It's a children's book. It's called The Fox and the Mountain, and it's about this fox's journey up this mountain, and all of the different characters that he meets along the way are characters that we had interacted with in our life who were trying to talk us out of success, trying to keep us at their level, and we didn't
So, where
realize
did
that at
the
the
idea
time.
for making it a children's book come from?
We were in the car one day, driving. I was driving to a job interview, and the idea popped into my head. We should do this. And my wife and I, on the car ride, we literally mapped out the entire thing. It was one of those times where we hopped in a boat, got in the river, and let the river take us downstream. It
Yeah,
was one of the
wow.
smoothest flowing things that we had ever done. We published it, over the course of the next like 18 months. We had it illustrated, and then we ended up publishing it, and it didn't do very well. Like, books never really do very well. But what we realized, uh, uh, over the course of the next few years, what we didn't realize was that this book kind of became our own roadmap. We had written our own journey to success,
Wow.
and as we had continued to stick with entrepreneurship and building our YouTube channels and building our businesses, everything that we wrote in this book became our reality. And so there's
Wow.
a couple like important lessons there, right? Number one, write down your intentions, write down where you want to go, your vision. And number two, don't listen to the people who are trying to talk you out of it,
Yeah.
because we all have a seed of greatness within us.
That's awesome. So the entrepreneurship, where did that come from for you? Like, was it part of your family? Were your parents like that? Your uncles? Like, where did that inspiration for entrepreneurship come from?
So I'm ADHD. I was diagnosed when I was young, and I've never fit into a box. And so school was very hard for me. Sometimes even athletics was hard for me, because it was hard to constrain me into practice. I loved sports. I loved playing sports, but practice, was very difficult for me. And entrepreneurship was the one area of my life that I had complete control over, and I could, however I worked and whatever I learned, determined how successful or not successful I would become. And so I just found that I could experiment and test and try things in entrepreneurship. And there wasn't really anybody there who, most people who are telling you to stay in a box, they're not entrepreneurs. And so they don't
Right,
understand it
right,
anyway. They're not giving you good advice anyway. And so it was a perfect fit for me because I didn't have to take anybody's advice, you know, to get started.
right,
And
right.
I could do a variety of things all at the same time. And it was very good, healthy for my brain.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and for something like that, where, you're finding that you're not fitting in and others are not usually encouraging, there, find a path and stick to it, do
Right.
these things and that's how you get successful. Was there somebody that did inspire you, even though they might not have been a direct contact?
Yeah. So my uncle is an entrepreneur. He built a very successful business in Boise, Idaho. And I always kind of looked at him as this North Star. Like he's got nice things, he's got a nice house, he has respect, he commands attention, he's a good leader. And so I always kind of looked at him as this this ideal entrepreneur. Like I want to be like that. The
Yeah,
rich uncle, right?
yeah,
Everybody's got a
yeah.
rich uncle. I looked at my rich uncle and I was like, that's who I want to be. I want to be the rich uncle for my siblings' kids.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. And so, you went into on this entrepreneur journey. Was your wife into that journey? Like, was she excited about entrepreneurship, or was she the one that's a little more? I don't know about that.
No, my wife is very much entrepreneurial as well. She's got her own things that she does, her own projects. We both were the types of personalities that you can't put into the box. Like you tell us to go right and we're going to go left just to see what that path looks like.
That's awesome.
And it's a double-edged sword, right? There are things that are beneficial from having that type of a mentality, and there are also things that can create setbacks. But I think the thing that we both learned was that we enjoy experiential learning. We enjoy taking action and learning from our mistakes and trying to continue to level up by failing forward. I don't even want to say that, but just trying. I call it the rule of reductive attempts, right? You try so many things that you end up with the only thing that works. Like you end up with
Yeah,
all of the
yeah,
success.
yeah. I love that. And so you went on this journey with her. You wrote this book. You went at it from the framework of a children's book. And was this
Yeah.
before or after you had kids?
We had two daughters at the time,
Yeah,
and my son wasn't born.
yeah.
He didn't coming around to 2014.
Yeah. And so with the children's book version of a leadership and a success book, what were some of the lessons that you didn't fully understand until they actually happened?
Yeah, that's good. It's a good question. So at the end of the book, this will be a little bit of a spoiler, but this fox he encounters the storm and it's unlike anything he's ever anticipated, anything he's expected. And he doesn't know if he's going to make it through the storm. And we hadn't really experienced a storm like that in entrepreneurship where you reach the point where all of your wisdom, knowledge, and persistence is tested to the extreme, right? Because people who are successful, you don't become that way by easy buttoning your way to success. You
Right.
become that way through the refining fire. You become that way through the grindstone, through the grinding mill. And every time you take a punch in the face, you get a little bit sharper, you get a little bit faster. And the ultimate test, and I genuinely feel this way, and we have these tests now. We call them, we see them all the time. We get these, not all the time, but every couple of years when we're about to level up, we'll be faced with a storm in our life that tests us.
Yeah.
And I think that writing that into the book, for the first time, we didn't truly understand what that meant until we had experienced it. in success and entrepreneurship in leveling up.
Wow. And was there a time that even one of the principles that you have in the book where, the impact of it, really hit home for, like, somebody that read it that they're like, "This alone is the one thing that really affected me big"?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, it's been almost 15 years since we published it. We got a lot of messages like that in the beginning. A lot of messages. We actually still get messages now where people are they're reading it to their kids. The children's
Wow.
book. We also turned it into a teen and adult version too, so it's a chapter book that we released a couple years later. But so the children's book, I think, made the biggest impact. A lot of parents said that they read it to their kids, and their kids requested it every night before bed. And that
Wow.
was always very special to us because we felt like it was awesome to be able to have that level of impact on children. If
Yeah.
we can get children to start to think this way, then we could change the future. And that's a pretty empowering feeling to have. And also something that we don't take lightly. It's never something that we let go to our head. It's always like we have a responsibility to teach children correct principles of success if we want to impact that next generation.
Yeah, and with your children, I got to meet your daughter at a recent event, and so with your children, have you seen them mirror any of the principles in the book that you've been like, "Ah, proud dad" moment?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, all of our kids have that kind of the stubborn, "I'm not gonna fit in the box" type of a quality, but we've taught them from a very young age how to persist through trials and hardships and how difficult things are actually good for us. We shouldn't turn around and run when we're faced with challenges. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to who met some opposition on their path to success, and they use the excuse of God didn't want me to do this. And I don't think that's how it works. I think that I'm a believer, right? I think that God puts challenges into our life so that way we learn how to get over them. So that way we respect the journey, and that way we prove our worthiness of success and financial success and health. Like you don't get healthy well, I mean, this is arguable now, but you don't get healthy by just taking a pill, or you don't get healthy without having a lot of side effects and other things by taking pills. You get healthy by eating right and going to the gym. That's
Right,
that's hard. That's hard for a lot of people. That takes
right,
dedication. I wake up every
right,
morning at 5 o'clock and I work out for an hour to 90 minutes because I want to stay healthy for my family. I want to stay physically fit. That takes determination. And
right.
it's the same thing when it comes to success. Like it takes determination. It takes doing the things that other people are not willing to do.
Yeah.
And that's not a lot of people understand that.
Well, and it's in the doing that there's also the clarity that you might not have if you weren't doing. I mean, I have the T-shirt that says "Clarity through action." That
Yep.
sometimes you get the clarity from the doing, and that's kind of where the gap is between a lot of people's success is they want the clarity first, and until they have it, they're kind of stuck in this dead space of nothingness. But sometimes you actually get the clarity in the doing. And that sounds like
Yeah.
that's what happened with you and with some of the stuff that you wrote about.
100%. Yep, 100%. I mean, I've always been the type that I don't sit and make a business plan. I don't plan things out. I just dive in and then I tweak as I go. And generally speaking, that has brought a significant amount of success over the course of at least the last 10 to 15 years. Once we got all of our fails out of our system, learned all those lessons, now I take action and I can generally see success relatively quickly.
Well, I think that's almost like a prototyping, right? Is you put out stuff, you try stuff, you test stuff,
Yep.
you prototype ideas, you put it out into the world, see what resonates, see what doesn't resonate, and then you know what direction to start heading in, right?
Exactly. Yep, exactly.
And so, as the book was 15 years ago, you're 15 years removed from that. So, what lessons in the book do you keep going back to that you're like, oh man, I was so we had it right there, over the last 15 years that you've kind of looked back on?
The book is mostly about like the subtle things that people try to do to influence you negatively. The things that people say, the actions that they take, who is in your circle. I just made a Facebook post, actually, I think yesterday, about naysayers, right? And this is directly from our book, and how most people in life literally have no idea what they're talking about. They're parroting what they hear other people say. And if it sounds intelligent enough, then they'll remember it and then they'll regurgitate it later on. But they have no actual real understanding or historical um historical experience with what they're talking about. And so my question is to everybody is, why do we allow those people to influence us? Why do we listen to those people?
Yeah,
I like to listen to people who have domain expertise. This is why I pay for consulting from people. I specifically reach out to people who I see have domain expertise rather than posting my intentions and ideas online just to have every average Joe respond to them with their own thoughts and opinions. And I don't mean that negatively against people who are uh people who have good intentions in giving you advice, but I don't take advice from just anyone. And I
yeah,
don't recommend that people do. I've we in our YouTube agency, we work with people sometimes who I've had this direct experience where I will advise somebody of something YouTube related. They will go to Facebook a couple days later and not fact check me, but say, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What are your thoughts?" And then they'll get hundreds of comments on their post from people who have no idea what they're talking about when it comes to YouTube, giving my client advice and my client then coming back to me second guessing everything that I'm doing.
yeah,
That's really interesting. One experience that happened, I mean, it was really like frustrating because every couple weeks we do that. And obviously, like that person wasn't successful. They didn't end up taking my advice. We ended up leaving them. Uh, but it was, this is what I'm talking about. Like you can cherry pick who you take advice from based off of what you know about their domain expertise.
yeah,
I don't go to somebody who doesn't have children for parenting advice.
yeah,
I'm certain those people have something to say about parenting, but I'm not going to them for good parenting advice. I don't go to someone who's single for marriage advice, especially after being married to my wife for 21 years. I wouldn't go to someone who's single for marriage advice because
yeah,
they have no idea what it's like to experience a 20-year, 21-year marriage and be able to advise correctly based off of what I'm looking for.
yeah.
And so I have essentially established a routine now where I talk to people who have what I want and I ask them questions based off of my intention and where I'm wanting to go.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot, and I've seen that happen as well online. Where I think it's people almost have a fear of just taking one person's advice, and they almost feel like we've got to poll this, we've got to put it out to the world and get some feedback. And when you do
Yeah,
that, there's people online that will give you feedback, and most of them don't know what they're talking about, or they're echoing
yeah,
something they heard, or a tweet they saw, or a post they saw, or a blog they read, but they don't have the depth of knowledge that somebody that's actually tried and been through the fire and tested and refined their expertise. And I see that happening over and over again. Is people are constantly, whether it's fear based or whatever the motivation is, but they're putting stuff out to people that really have no professional or experiential uh, basis for their advice. And I think that's kind of the social media thing that everybody seems to be doing these days.
yeah. 100%. Well, and everybody wants to be the smartest person in the room, and everybody wants to have the most likes on their comments, and so it's kind of this. It's kind. it's really fascinating. I don't know if you've ever taken a personality test. We've done the 16 personalities, Myers-Briggs, and I'm an INTP. And so I'm very logically oriented, and emotion emotional reaction or emotional decision making does not make sense to me whatsoever. And so when I see people act a certain way online, I just have no idea what would influence them to do that other than a desire or a something that has been unmet in their life, some type of attention seeking that's been unmet in their life that they're not
Yeah.
fulfilled. But yeah, we live in a very interesting culture that way. Everybody wants to feel important.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and even with, and we'll talk about this in a little bit about AI, especially when it comes down to creating content. But I think even with AI, people are fact checking professionals by using AI, and that's not always reliable. I know of an agency that they had done a big project for a client, developed a website and all the stuff, and then the client decided to ask ChatGPT about the strategy, and the client actually trusted ChatGPT over what this agency had done for them, and it created this conflict between the two because people are just, that
Yeah.
I guess they're not trusting, or they're just not secure enough in their own intuition in using people that know what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a huge problem. Huge problem. I mean, because in reality, ChatGPT is just a confident Google, right? It's just takes everything from the internet like Google does, and then comes back to you with more certainty in how it delivers the information. And so I think that because we have because we have interacted with technology now for the last 25 years pretty regularly, reading messages, reading texts and emails, has has become a major part of how we communicate. And if ChatGPT can sound like a human in the way that it messages us, then there can be trust that's built there, which is kind of scary. But that's the
Now,
world we live in.
I do want to get into talking about where you're at now, what you're doing with Graffiti Media. So, with your
Yeah.
entrepreneur journey, you said, you wrote the book 15 years ago and you're an entrepreneur and you tried a lot of stuff. What was the first thing that you tried that you were like, okay, I think I've found the thing?
Yeah, that was YouTube. So
Yeah.
in for the from 2009 or 2010 when we published the book to 2014, I had kind of traveled around a little bit speaking on the principles of the book. So I go to Chamber of Commerce meetings, I go to Rotary Club meetings, some business meetings, and I was actually hired to fly from Dallas to Portland to do a series of videos for a company for an app that they were building that was all these videos were personal development in nature. And as I was gone, my wife was pregnant, and she called me and she's like, "This is too hard. I need you home." And so when I got home, I I we're kind of like, we're selling the book by traveling and doing these presentations. How do I do that online? And that's when I pivoted over to YouTube, and we started creating our YouTube channel then at the end of 2014. And slowly but surely, we started gaining a following. And by 2017, we had over 100,000 subscribers, and we were able to go
Wow.
full time
Wow.
with it. And it was one of those things, and this is something that I talk about all the time with people who have ADHD, is what I call business stacking. So I had my full-time job, and then I had my side hustle, which was YouTube. And because I had both, I was able to work my full-time job, make sure that there was money coming in, but I was always looking forward to when I would get done, and then I could go and start doing the YouTube. And because it was very much passive at that point, it was just something that I used as an outlet from my full-time job.
Yeah.
And then we built it up, got it to the point where we were full-time, and then my business that I was working at, ended up closing down, and we just seamlessly moved from that over to being full-time YouTube creators in 2017. And, um, and then from there, people had seen what we were doing on YouTube. We'd gained a significant following. We were traveling, and I started having my business owner entrepreneurial friends started to reach out and ask what I was doing and if I could help them, and that's how Graffiti was born. So in 2019, we launched Graffiti Media, and it's still around today. Uh,
Now now with the, starting off with the YouTube and going on YouTube, have you had any previous experience with doing video?
just a little bit, just a little bit. So I had kind of dabbled on YouTube in 2013, but I wasn't taking it super serious. And and then, I was hired by that company to come out to Portland, and I started to really see how video production could improve and increase your image. And that's when I kind of put it all together as like, hey, this is something that I think could work for us. I have a pretty decent on camera personality. I feel like, I'm relatable. I'm self-deprecating. I think that people like that, they can relate to me. And so I've always kind of found it very easy to build followings with video, and it's very natural for us.
Yeah. So what was the content like when you first started? What were you putting out there?
Yeah, it was, just like anything else, it's brutal. Anytime, I mean, if you go back and you watch your early days playing soccer or your first time in the gym, it's going to look very cringy. And that's basically how my content was in the beginning. It was very cringy. Um, I have a tendency to laugh away awkward situations. And so a lot of my videos in the beginning were very laugh heavy, where I would try to joke. I would make jokes to hide my insecurities. And I can sense that. And I think that a lot of people could sense that too. And so, there's some cringiness to it. But you don't learn these things until you see yourself on camera and yourself and you commit to being self-aware. You don't actually see how you come across. And so
Yeah.
it's all part of the journey. I have zero regrets, but yeah, the beginning was pretty cringy.
So what was the first video that you did that got the most attention?
I did a video. Actually, I pull this one up in some of my presentations sometimes. Um, I made a video that was how to build confidence, 3 quick tips, and ended up getting about 50,000 views. And I used that in comparison to some of the other videos that I did that did not have good titles or thumbnails. And, they'd only get a couple dozen views or a couple hundred views. And this was kind of our first breakout 50,000. And it taught me that it taught me what I needed to know about packaging content, right? How to title your content, how to thumbnail your content in order to get clicks. And in
Yeah.
that case, it was solving someone else's problem. I'm not confident. I'm going to go to YouTube and figure out how to be more confident. Oh, here's a video that's how to build confidence in 3 quick tips. That was our first little breakout video. From there, I started to bring my family into my content, and then ultimately became a family vlog. And we had many, many very successful videos in the family space, multiple tens of millions of views on some of them. But our first big video got about 700,000 views. Announcing announcing one of my kids, telling my kids that we're pregnant again. And that ended up getting 700 some thousand views and doing very well.
Yeah. So, you've been doing video now on YouTube, and that's kind of what you're all about. So let's start talking about, for the person that is in a place that you were at before you figured out some things, they're only getting a few dozen views. They're not, things aren't, they feel that they have a message. They feel they have good content. What do you start looking at to see what the gaps are and what the problems are with what they're putting out there?
Yeah, the very first thing that we look at, as you experienced, right?
Yeah.
I when I go to a channel, within a couple minutes, I can pretty much determine what's holding it back from massive success. Typically, it is no one singular format of video. So if you have a variety of formats on your channel that makes it hard from an audience perspective to commit to subscribing because they don't know what they're going to get.
Right, right. That's good.
Also, if you have a mishmash of topics, that can also be confusing from an audience perspective. And then your packaging, your titles and your thumbnails. If your titles and your thumbnails don't make sense, they don't create curiosity, they're not well done, they're too complicated to understand, the audience will look at them, be confused, and disappear. And I've been doing a new series where I'm auditing YouTube channels and just kind of pointing out what are some of the things that these people are doing wrong, and then how can they flip that switch. And this is like 95% of channels that are failing because formats, titles, and thumbnails. So if you can get
Yeah,
those dialed in, that's step one.
yeah,
Step two is like doing a deep dive in the content, but you really don't even need to have that great of content. If you got good titles and thumbnails, you'll get clicks. You can have subpar content and still get 10 or 15 or 20,000 subscribers on your channel. You need to have your content dialed in order to scale past that, in order to scale into the hundreds of thousands of subscribers.
yeah. I like what you started with there is, when people come to your channel, they need to see and understand the reason for them to care about your channel and what is it about. Like, is it travel tips? Is it, health tips? Is it financial tips? But if it's all over the place, like you said, then they're like, I don't know why I should subscribe to this or pay attention to this because I don't know what I'm going to get on a consistent basis. It's kind of all over the place. And so I think that's a really good tip there that, if you're creating a YouTube channel is having a why should I care type thing to it. Like, why should somebody care about your channel? How is it helping them?
Yeah. I mean, exactly. I mean, the way that most people subscribe to channels, unless you have a video that's really, really good, most people it takes a couple of videos of repetition before they're going to commit to subscribe to you. And so what happens with the algorithms when you watch a video, from someone's channel, it's fed to you somewhere on the homepage or in recommended, I mean, in suggested or in search. If you watch and engage with someone's channel, a couple of days later, YouTube's going to serve you another one of their videos, and just to test. And if that video is completely different, you're not going to watch it. And if you don't watch it, then YouTube's going to stop serving it to you.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah,
occasionally what happens is people watch a video and they'll be like, this is awesome. I'm going to go check out their channel and look at their other body of content, see if there's anything else that I might like on their channel. And if they do that, then you want to have your channel kind of buttoned up, everything looking similar. You want to have a good brand presence. You want to have good titles and thumbnails, everything on one topic. You want the audience to feel like you're talking to them and helping them solve their problems. So this is why like building an audience avatar is so important. And uh, and if you do all of those things, then you're just setting yourself up for more success, right? I just started another YouTube channel a few weeks ago, and I've 350 subscribers right now, and every day I'm gaining 10 to 20, and it's because I'm doing all of the things that I tell other people to do, and I almost guarantee that within 6 months this channel will have tens of thousands of subscribers, if not more,
yeah.
because I'm just following the principles. I'm doing the things that make channels successful.
Now, you'd also talked about titling, and we'd had this discussion even about my podcast and the way mine is titled. So what are some things that people need to consider or think about when it comes to titling?
So every title has a every title. There are many title formats, and each one has a different intention, and each one will appeal or not appeal to an audience uh, because of different factors. So, for example, if you were to type, I drove down the highway at 160 miles per hour, here's what happened. That's a really interesting title, but that's not going to show up in search engines because nobody's ever going to search for, I drove down the highway at 160 miles an hour. Like,
Yeah,
it's not a search term. So
yeah,
that's going to end up showing up in recommended, which is the homepage. It's going to end up showing up in suggested, where someone is just passively watching another video, and then in that right-hand column, they see that video and a thumbnail, or they see a title and a thumbnail and think, "Oh, that's interesting. I'm going to watch it." As opposed to how to grow a YouTube channel in the next 30 days with Scott Simpson, right? How to grow a YouTube channel is a search term that's going to show up in search. That
Yeah.
also might show up in suggested. It's got a lower likelihood of showing up in recommended on the homepage for at least, if it does, it's not going to be like where the largest number of your impressions and views come from. But on the tail end of that video, like, or the longevity of it, it's going to get a lot of views over the course of 10 years because it'll keep showing up in the search engine and you'll keep getting those
Wow,
search
that's
views.
good.
As opposed to, I just changed my tires on the highway, right? That might get shown, or the 160 miles an hour, that might get shown and recommended for a few days or for a few weeks until somebody makes a video called, "I drove 170 miles an hour down the highway. Here's what happened." Right.
Yeah.
And then that removes its effectiveness.
Right.
It fails to continue to be as relevant. Or news is another really good example. Donald Trump just said this. Cool. Well, that's only relevant for 48 hours and then, like, poof, gone. It's going to
Yeah.
disappear because Donald Trump says something new every few days and the YouTube algorithm is constantly feeding the homepage with all the interesting things that Donald Trump says.
Yeah.
And so every time you title something, I try to think of what's the intention behind this? Does the video back up the title? Because if I say how to build a YouTube channel and then I talk about something completely different, the audience isn't going to want to watch. And then the
Yeah.
algorithm's going to be like, "Oh, audience dropped off after 5 seconds. This video is dead." And
Yeah.
so everything kind of needs to fit together, but then there has to be an intention behind the title as to where you want that video to show up.
Wow. Wow. That is so good. I think that alone is a pretty big head smack for some people, especially me. I mean,
Sure.
I think my podcast can certainly stand for some better titling than it has right now. And I think for a lot of people, that makes a lot of sense because they've probably experienced that, but they didn't quite know why things were happening the way they were happening. And you've just provided kind of the pull back the curtain, of here's why it's working is make it a search term type title as opposed to something that is interesting and the algorithm might kind of feed out there to test, but it will die within a short time.
Yeah.
So when it
Yep.
comes to even with the titling and with let's talk about the thumbnails. How important are they? Is the title more important than the thumbnail, or are they equally important? Like, what's the the hierarchy of relevance and importance when building YouTube videos and channels?
So I call this the tension trinity. So thumbnail stops the scroll and then builds curiosity for them to look at the title. The title confirms their curiosity that has been built up in the thumbnail, but then also builds more curiosity that gets you to want to click and watch the video. And then the hook builds tension and curiosity to get you to watch the next minute, and then the next minute, and the next minute, and the next minute. So thumbnails have got to stop the scroll. You have to get people to see them and be like, wait, what is this? And then go to the title and be like, "Okay, that's what I thought this was. This is interesting. Let's click it." And then in the hook, it's like, "Oh, wow, they really delivered on the title and thumbnail. This video is indeed about the thumbnail and about the title. I'm going to keep watching." And if you build enough tension in each of those three areas, you've got the recipe for a successful video.
So you mentioned the title of the stop the scroll for the actual image, and then the title. So they can actually be different, or they should be different, or what?
Should be different.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so your thumbnail shouldn't be the exact same thing. Shouldn't say the exact same thing as your title. It should be enough to get them to stop, ask themselves a question, and think to themselves, "Well, I got to read what this video is about because this seems really interesting." And so a lot of times, like, I won't even put words in my thumbnails. I will put objects that are familiar in situations or with other objects that are contradictory, and then have arrows pointing everywhere or red circles around things, just so that way I can build that curiosity. Now, again, in order for this to work effectively, you have to deliver on whatever it is that you put in your thumbnail and your title.
Yeah.
But one of my most successful thumbnails for one of our clients, I think the video ended up getting 3 or 4 million views, was he was in the personal development space. He talks about the law of attraction, and this was very early on when Midjourney just came out, and it could create photorealistic images. And I made this image of this man in a white robe laying on a table, surrounded by men in old fashioned suits, so like look like they were in the 1800s. It was a old, worn photograph looking thing, and then above the man laying on the table was kind of this, like, ghost-like apparition, and I just put an arrow put an arrow pointed towards the person, and that was all that I had in the thumbnail. That's interesting because it looked real. And then the
Mhm.
title was something like "The Elite Circles Never Told You This" or something like that. Video ended up getting millions and millions of views, drove a ton of leads in business to my client's business, and was just a smashing hit. And there were 0 words in the thumbnail at all. It was all just images. And so
Interesting.
that doesn't work with every niche, but it just kind of illustrates um this feeling, uh, the significance of emotional curiosity and what it can get us to do. And so people
Wow.
saw it, they're like, "Wow, that is cool. I gotta know what
Yeah.
this video is about. Oh, this title is actually really interesting. What do the ancient people know? What do these Freemasons know that I don't know? Let's watch it." And then they click on it and are blown away within the first 30 seconds.
Wow. Now, what's interesting about that sample there is that the title was not from the search term frame. So was it what do you
Right.
think made that one work? Was it the curiosity?
Is it
Was
recommended? Yeah,
yeah,
this one hit and recommended, so it was a homepage hit. And sometimes again, like, depending on the saturation of the market, you can have thumbnails that work for months and months and months, and this one actually did. Then what ended up happening was, this was very early on in AI, and ChatGPT script writing was horrendous in the beginning. But as ChatGPT 4.0 came out, script writing became easier and easier, and so my clients' videos just kept getting stolen, and those thumbnails, the thumbnails that I created for him, they would just be completely ripped off. Like, people would just grab them and then add a little bit of text and then post it themselves. I always saw that as kind of like a badge of honor. I was like, "Oh, I started this trend. That's really cool." But at the same time, it significantly impacted my client's business because his content was so easy to steal, and
mm,
you just gotta be careful. Gotta be careful with that. Now I
yeah.
encourage everybody to put their face in their thumbnails, so that way they've got some type of IP that can't be stolen, or it's very recognizable if it does get stolen.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you'd also mentioned the hook. Is the hook in the
Yeah.
content? Is the hook in the description? Where's that hook lie?
Yeah, the hook is gonna be the first, from second 1, uh, until it's really like, I try to have effective hooks in the first 5 seconds of a video. A lot of people drag them out, to the first 30 seconds of a video. Basically, it's just, the first things that you say is that grab the audience's attention and commit them to continuing to watch. The YouTube measures this as the first 30 seconds of a video. And so you really want your first 30-second retention, 30-second audience retention to be as high as possible. And the higher you get it, the higher the likelihood is that they're going to stay for longer in the video. So retention really is like one of the key metrics YouTube is looking at for audience satisfaction. And if you can have your retention super high, then and the audience is satisfied, then YouTube will continue to push your content because it's a signal to YouTube that the audience likes what you're putting out there.
Right, right, right. And they measure everything. So how important is the description then?
Description, the importance of description is actually not really a factor. There's some like SEO benefit to writing good descriptions, but you can have a very successful channel and have 0 in your description at all. You don't have to put anything in your description.
Wow. Wow. And so that doesn't play a part in YouTube knowing what your content is about and putting it out there? Are they getting that from the transcript? Are they
Minimal.
getting
Yeah. Yeah, so, transcript is yeah, everything is transcribed, so, transcript, title, those are the key sources of metadata for the YouTube AI. Description, like, I don't write custom descriptions for any of my pieces of content. I've got one description for all of my videos, and that's
Oh,
kind of how
wow.
it is for most of our clients too. It's the same description on every video.
Wow. Okay. Because yeah, I mean, I spend time coming up with, good descriptions for my podcast. So
Yeah.
I still might continue doing that, but that's interesting that it has very little relevance to it actually being put out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, we've covered some amazing stuff that I think for some people is really going to impact what they're doing. When, when it comes to creating video content, I know AI has changed a lot, and you talk about leveling the playing field for business owners. So let's talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah.
How has AI impacted all of this, and what do you see happening in the future with AI?
AI has taken a lot of the more difficult processes out of the equation. So just going from nothing to having good quality content in a short period of time has been diminished to um not to a point where it's not really that difficult to create quality content anymore. What I mean by that is like you still have the issues of is your video quality good, right? Is your lighting good? Is your audio good? Those things are all things though that you can kind of set it and forget it. Once you set it up for the first time, you can press record and go. But most of the time, like the things that were difficult for people were what do I say? Like, how do I format my thoughts into a well articulated game plan, script for YouTube? And Claude Claude writes most of my scripts now. I have a process, I have a process that I talk about. I call it the cheat method. But Claude, I just brain dump everything about a topic that I know into Claude, and then I feed Claude a video framework that I think will be effective for that video, and then Claude spits out a script for me, and then I teleprompt my script. I've got this little doodad right here. It's his little remote, and I just press start and stop when I want it to, when I'll read it and then I'll press pause and then I'll ad lib and I'll tell a personal story and then I'll press go. And that's how I record all my content now. And I mean, up until the last couple weeks since I've been traveling, I was recording 7 videos a day, 7 short form videos a day, and probably 3 or 4 long form videos a day. Sorry, 3 or 4 long form videos a week. And it's just a very smooth process, and we're
Yeah,
getting,
yeah.
millions of views on some of the content that I'm putting out.
Yeah. AI is getting a lot better. I mean, I use it quite a bit for my podcast and just helping me generate, the show notes and social media content and all of that stuff, and as well as the
Yeah,
descriptions for YouTube. I haven't used it for script writing yet. So that's an interesting take. And I know it's gotten better at that. And
yeah,
and so, how I know people are also kind of getting to a point of calling AI stuff that's being put out there, they're not liking it. How
yeah.
effective is AI in creating content on YouTube that actually people enjoy? Is it stronger than ever? Do you see it diminishing, or is it just getting better and better, and people are getting more used to it?
It depends on how you use AI, right? So, if you use AI for script writing, you can still tell a lot of the times, but I've kind of removed a lot of the things that I think were rubbing people the wrong way in my first AI scripts. Y y um Claude or ChatGPT has a tendency to use grammatical mechanisms, like grammar mechanisms or writing mechanisms that are just like a little bit weird. Like people don't speak that way ordinarily.
Yeah.
And I've had it analyze its own scripts and tell me all of the things that it was doing. And now I just have a prompt that's like, do not do any of these things in your script. And so it's pretty smooth.
Yeah.
Um, so script writing has gotten really good. When it comes to like AI video production, I think that that's where a lot of people are getting fed up. You know, there was a time when it was novel, and that was kind of the time when everybody was making those Bigfoot videos, those the Yeti videos, you know, walking around drinking beer, whatever.
Right. Right.
And it was novel. And then there was kind of, you know, every time a new model is released, like Sea Dance came out, and then we saw the Brad Pitt and
Tom Cruise.
Tom
Yeah.
Cruise. Yeah, Brad Pitt fighting Tom Cruise, and we're just like, wow, that's amazing. I think I even reposted that, got uh, hundreds of thousands of views, if not millions of views on that video. Anyway, like it was really cool, but then you get to a point where you're just like, I don't trust anything anymore. I'm done
Yeah.
watching this stuff. So now anytime I have a hint of this is AI, I immediately swipe because I'm sick of it. And
Yeah.
it's not real. And I I automatically think, you know, from a user perspective, I automatically think, what's the person look like or thinking who's behind this? Who's the wizard behind the curtain pulling the strings? And I think of that as negative. It's nefarious, in my opinion. And so
Yeah.
I don't watch any of that content anymore. I don't subscribe to it. And I think that most people are getting that way.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
there are certain things like I enjoy like AI movie breakdowns. Like sometimes there'd be content where it's like a man walked into the bathroom and grabbed the knife from the counter, and I'm like, oh, that's actually kind of cool. And then they're showing visuals from the actual movie. I think
Yeah.
that type of
Yeah.
content's fun, but I'm not. It's because it's not pretending that it's real. I think
Yeah.
the stuff that's pretending it's real is the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I keep getting notifications of people that are joining Meta AI, and they, wants me to join Meta AI and, kind
Yeah,
of watch videos created by Meta AI. And I'm like, why? Why would I like care to
I
watch,
know.
I know everything that I'm seeing is fake. And the funny thing is people are trying to put it out there like it's real. Here's what I saw from
Yeah,
the window from my airplane, it's a UFO. And I'm like, it's all fake. Like, I don't care about it.
yeah,
And so I think there is a space for what you're talking about of real people creating real content as well. That I think, don't be deceived and think that nobody cares about that they all love AI and they're all about the AI. They still care about real people telling real stories, doing real things, doing real content. Right? Yeah, I mean, that's what you're seeing as well.
yep. Yeah, and I don't even mind content that's taking an existing video clip and then at the end of that video clip continuing the story with AI. I think that that's fun, and because it originated with something real.
Yeah.
I don't. I think the thing that bothers me the most is when it's like this grandma. It's the things that I saw one yesterday. Perfect example. Uh, there's this little girl in the lunch line at school, and she gets to the checkout, and then the lunch lady's like, sorry sweetie, you don't have enough money on your lunch card, so you can't eat today. And it was clearly intended to piss people off, get people wound up. It didn't actually happen. It was all an AI video, and yet you look at the comments and people are like, racism this and why did that happen there, and it's the intention is nefarious. It's to get people emotionally triggered, rage bait, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that that's wrong. I don't think that
Right.
that's good. I don't
Yeah.
think that's going to have a net positive for humanity,
Right.
making up
Right.
scenarios that didn't happen in order to trigger people.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of that kind of content, and it's people just they're thirsty for the clicks, they're thirsty for the attention. But I've also
Yeah,
seen videos where it's like something from history, here's some historical thing, and they create AI videos, to kind of show
yeah,
the historical doing of this, you know it's not real. Like it wasn't, they didn't have cameras then, so
Right.
it's all fake. But what they've done is they've brought together and curated content or history or information and created it. So I think there is a place for, that in YouTube and in our consumption of stuff. But I think we are getting to a point where people are also just super skeptical of stuff. It's like, is this just rage bait? Did this really happen? And so, for the person that might be trying to decide on creating a YouTube channel, we've talked about some of the content. And I recently talked to somebody that wanted to know about, even creating a podcast. And I just told them, like, go in scrappy. Like, don't feel that you have to have the fancy everything to create content. Go in scrappy. Like, go in. You've got a phone. People are used to phones. What do you tell people when it comes to creating a YouTube channel? What are some of the things that you've learned and made mistakes along the way that you can kind of really give them some gold in what they should consider?
It all depends on what they're trying to do, what the outcome is that they're desiring. Like if they want to become a million subscriber YouTube channel, then my approach to YouTube is going to be completely different than if you want to get business leads for your YouTube channel. You know, one, you can grow tremendously fast in an entertainment niche if you if you do, if you pull a couple of levers. There are things that you can do with entertaining content to get people to watch and subscribe. If you want leads, then education is the best approach, creating educational content. And that takes time to grow and to get leads because you have to build trust. And trust doesn't just come overnight. There are people who are willing to throw a dollar at everything, but it's a high likelihood that that's a very sustainable amount. It's not going to be a lot of people who were like, "Yes, I love this guy. This is amazing. Let's do this. This is going to be great." That's not how it doesn't typically work that way if you're trying to get leads. So it really depends on what they want as their goal.
So say, it's a business owner that, knows
Yeah.
they want to create YouTube content. So what would you tell them? They want to generate leads. They want to start a YouTube channel. What do they need in place, or what do they need to consider to be able to do that effectively?
So the first thing that I would do, I'll just take you through kind of like our process. So the first thing that we would do is analyze who the audience is, what their fears are, what their wants are, what they are worried about, and then we'll take all that data and we'll come up with a big list based off of our our clients' domain expertise. We'll come up with a big list of title ideas or just video ideas in general, educational wise, that we can just start cranking out content on. From there, it's about having really good, solid frameworks for scripts. You need to have a good hook. You need to have good titles and thumbnails, and then you need to have at least a 3 point flow, like an old college essay. You need to write point one, point two, point three, and then have an outro. And if you've got a format like that that's familiar, it's good value in education, you got good titles and thumbnails and a good hook. It doesn't matter what you shoot on. You can shoot on an iPhone. Just make sure you have good audio and have good lighting. If you have all of those things, you have everything that you need in order to get to 50 to 100,000 subscribers.
Yeah. Wow.
It's just time and determination.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about Graffiti Media. For one thing, the name is awesome. I love the name. What was the
Thank you.
origin of the name? And tell me a little bit about what you guys do and how people can get a hold of you.
Yeah, so graffiti means revolutionary graffiti. You just take the G off of graffiti, and that's how we came up with the name. And it's all about leaving your mark on the internet. It's about getting your voice out there. Typically, our messaging, our intention is to help people who have a smaller footprint online have a bigger voice on YouTube for their brands. And so we work with small businesses, business owners, internet marketers who are willing to put the effort into building a channel. It's not easy, it takes time, but once you get things moving, it can make a significant impact on your business. It can play a huge role in your success. A lot of our clients, in fact, have turned off Facebook ads because they get so many highly qualified hot leads coming in from their YouTube channel. And we
Wow.
do everything. We script videos, we edit videos, we upload, we do thumbnails and titles, we manage YouTube channels, we advise, we consult, like everything about YouTube. That's what we do. And then people can go to rafidimedia.com or just rafidi.com and see a little bit more about us. And yeah, we're always looking for good entrepreneurs who want to grow.
So what do they need to have in place for them to be a good client for you? Like, who wouldn't be a good client for you?
Good clients are typically people who have already experienced at least a little bit of growth on YouTube. More importantly, consistency. They have to have good, consistent flow when it comes to content creation. It's very difficult to start someone from zero and help them see success because there's so much that goes into content creation. It is a huge commitment. It's a grind, and we want all of our clients to have created systems around creating content before we'll work with them on at least a done for you side. Um, if they're starting from zero, I'm happy to consult, but for done for you, they need to have a little bit of experience, little traction.
Yeah, yeah. And so that's raffidimedia.com. I'll have the link in the show notes. I want to close this
Thank
out. I can't believe how quickly it's gone. It's been amazing. I know I've learned a lot of stuff and I've got a lot of homework for myself that I need to do for my own channel. So, what's a question that you wish I'd asked you or a head smack moment that you want to share as we wrap this up?
A question I wished you would have asked me. That's a really difficult question. I think that, hmm, I don't know about a question you should have asked, but I will just leave people with this. The the world, the majority of the population of the world would have you believe that you're not capable of tremendous success. And that couldn't be further from the truth. We literally have unlimited potential. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody's going to make the NFL, everybody's going to go and kick a soccer ball with Messi, but it does mean that um, you shouldn't limit yourself by what boxes other people put around you. If you want something, if you want to be successful, whether it's in YouTube or AI or business or whatever it is that you're seeking, if you simply believe it and you put effort into taking action towards that, you have a higher likelihood than not of actually achieving it. And I just want people to I want to leave people with that because I think that we're always kind of walking around with our own limiting beliefs. And if I can do my part to help diminish those a little bit, then I just want to leave people better than I find them.
That's awesome, man. What a great way to end this. Thank you so much. This has been amazing, Scott, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing your wisdom and your insights from trying, from failing, from trying again, and finally finding things that work. And that could really help a lot of people, man. I appreciate you, man. And thank you so much for being on.
Thank you, sir.
You are listening to Conversations with Misfits, Mavericks, and Trailblazers.